I shouldn't be looking for a house in Vegas. It was gonna be a really big risk. So I kind of didn't really know what I wanted going in. Other than that, I wanted to find a good house. Maybe this isn't supposed to happen.
Do you have any house hacking horror stories? These days, a lot of people, especially younger buyers, feel like homeownership is out of reach. But in today's video, I'm sitting down with my client Jeff, who bought his very first home last year and found a creative way to make it work financially. Jeff shares an interesting perspective on affording his home by using a strategy called house hacking, where he is affording his mortgage and building equity all at the same time. So if you're exploring smart ways to break into the market, you won't want to miss this conversation. If you're new here, my name is Olga. I make videos about living in Las Vegas. I'm also a real estate agent. And with that, let's hop into this interview with Jeff. Today we have my client, Jeff, whom about a year ago, I helped buy his first ever home here in Las Vegas. Jeff, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Olga. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to rewind about a year ago. We were in the thick of the house hunting process this time last year, but I'd love to talk a little bit about where you were before you decided to buy your first ever home. I know you moved to Las Vegas a couple years prior, so would love for you to share a little bit of your background and how you ended up in Las Vegas in the first place.
Absolutely. I had no idea that I was going to move to Las Vegas. You know, I had visited a couple of times. I'm from Maryland, so I had come with family and even with friends one time. And then I got a job in the sports betting world, and I had been a teacher prior to that. And, you know, through COVID, I was kind of ready for a change. And so Vegas came knocking, and I answered the call for that. So yeah, I ended up in the sports industry and then have now gotten to working on starting up my agency. So that's what I've been working on lately. And that's what, you know, has me in Vegas for right now. And I'm really excited to be here and now within the home that we ended up getting at that time.
So tell me a little bit about what was it like for you to move to Vegas on the professional front? Was it challenging for you to find a job? Was it easy? And also, you had mentioned you have an agency. Tell me a little bit about the agency afterwards.
I got the job. I actually went to a conference in DC, and I ended up standing near I think it was the COO of Sport Radar, which is the company. And, you know, was told there's jobs open and to apply. And then I interviewed, and I had some experience within betting. And so, yeah, got the job and was very excited, you know, and I was excited to move to Las Vegas. I've always wanted to live on the West Coast. So it was a good opportunity for me to make that jump. And so, yeah, I did that. And then I felt like I was ready for a change just within my career. I wanted to have a little bit more of, you know, upward mobility. And I am just also very excited about the world of AI and as it stands. So that, you know, meanwhile, I was kind of in what we'll call YouTube University, even while at the job. And then so started up this agency and found my business partner. And now we're providing call solutions to small businesses so that they can really optimize themselves and scale their businesses. Yeah.
Wow, way cool. I feel like AI is just, it's here, and it's just one of those things that you have to just jump on board or you're going to get left behind.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
I've been dipping my toes a little bit into AI, but well, that's for another time.
Yeah.
So when you first moved here, you rented for a little bit of time, correct?
Yes, up in the Centennial Hills area.
Okay. And how did you end up in that part of town?
Went on a long vacation with my family. It was over the summer, so I was teaching, and then it was the summer. And we were in Alaska, and then I went with my mom down here to Vegas, and we went like kind of apartment hunting at the time. And I wanted to have like a one bedroom so I'd have my own space. And, you know, I saw the space and it kind of looked like a little resorty, and I was like, wow, this looks really cool. So I got like a month or two off on it too. So I got a pretty good deal, and and the location seemed safe enough. So I was like, this place seems like the right one. And at the time, we didn't really know about me buying a house or anything like that. So I was really just trying to find a good, comfortable space to move to Vegas with, so that I could start my job and, feel like it was going to go well.
Awesome. So, okay, so now we get to the point where you make the decision to purchase a home. How did you get there? And you're also fairly young. There's so much stuff out there that is basically making it seem that it is impossible to purchase a home when you are younger. So a lot of first-time home buyers don't really know what is even available for them, what's possible for them. So how did you get to the point where you made the decision to purchase a home after being a renter for a bit of time in Las Vegas?
Yeah, actually a little before then, I had been looking into like doing Airbnb arbitrage just because, and I even like started an LLC around it. But then it just seemed like the legalities around it were really just difficult, and it was going to be a really big risk. And so it also just felt like it was going to be almost like a full-time job taking that on. And so we kind of shifted course to looking into a home. And I was like, I think I have a friend, and my loan officer, Haley, she recommended like, hey, I had this house when I was like your age, is basically when I bought it, and I've been house hacking it ever since, and it's gone really well, and I like the girls that are living in the house, and like it seems like you may want to try this out too. So she was a really big catalyst in making it happen.
So house hacking.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you have ever heard of house hacking? And can you also explain a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, it was not the first time. I think I had listened to some podcasts with it, and then I have a good friend from home who was house hacking before I was in Charlotte, and I think he had 3 people living in his house too. He had three levels to his house in Charlotte, and I think he still owns it. And so I had talked with him a little bit about his experience and how it had gone, and it seemed like it was going well. And I was like, I think this makes a whole lot of sense. Let's see if this could work for me.
And what seemed attractive to you about house hacking from everything that you had heard from your friends?
I mean, I had lived with roommates for years before, so that wasn't really a new concept. When I lived with 4 other guys when I was in Arlington, Virginia, and then another good friend. And so I've been familiar with like how things go when you have roommates, and it had gone well. So I was like, okay, well then it's just a matter of, making it so that I'm the one that is control of all the roommates basically, instead of being the renter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there was a whole lot, I've come up with a whole process as far as how to house hack effectively. And I've definitely had to learn through the process. So like the first guy who moved into the house, I actually had to kick out. He had a dog that was not so nice to basically anyone that came over to the house. And so I had to kick him out. And then I've had all sorts of different people. I think there's been 6 or 7 people that have lived in the house at some point in time since when I bought it. I guess it was May of last year. And now I have 2 guys that have been there for a good amount of time, where it does feel like it's a little more stable. But yeah, like, you have a number of different factors. You have how long is the lease going to be? So one of the rooms is set up actually as a more transient room. So it has a bed in there and like a nightstand. And so that one's like, okay, if someone is in town for like a shorter period of time. And the other 2 rooms are designed as a little bit longer term stays. And so I have a list of questions that I ask people going in. So I think one of them is, what's your age? Do you have a job? Are you clean? And are you okay with sharing a bathroom? So those are some of my questions that I always ask people, because I want there to be a good vibe in the house. And I say no to probably 90% of people. I would much rather have nobody fill the room than have someone that's like not a good fit fill the room.
And where do you find the candidates for the roommate position.
Yes, for the all wanted roommate position, Facebook Marketplace has been my best one. I tried Furnish Finder as well, but it didn't seem to work as well. And most of the people that were on there were kind of in town for shorter periods of time, and they also basically all wanted like their own private room or private entrance, and so it seemed like that wasn't like the best fit for what I was doing.
Okay, so you've explained house hacking and your process and how it works. So I'd love to rewind a little bit to the point where you were looking at houses, and you were looking at houses specifically with the angle of, is this going to be the right house for house hacking? Is it going to be the right fit for what you were looking to do? So I'm curious, what was it that you were looking for in particular? And also, I know that we looked at some new construction and we looked at resale. So what was it that ultimately led you to go the resale route versus new construction? And what were the main things that you looked for in that home that would be the perfect house hacking home?
I would say it was partly house hacking that I was looking for, but also like I just wanted to really like the house. That was maybe just as big of a driver that as much as the house hacking. They were kind of, they're maybe 50-50. And by the way, we found a great home for me, so great job on all of that. But I think that for the house, I was looking for a good backyard was like one of the biggest factors that I was looking for. And also I wanted to have, for the house hacking part, I wanted my room to be separate from the other rooms. So that was a pretty big factor. And I got that within this house that I'm currently in, along with a couple of other things. So it's a non-HOA neighborhood, which I really liked because I was like, great, like I can do whatever I want with this house eventually. So that was more of like the long-term thinking part of it. And then for the house hacking itself, I would have obviously loved it if there was one more bathroom, just because I think that would be great for the roommates. But overall, I think it's just like, it's a rather spacious house, and it allows for people to like have their own living spaces. Like we've got one TV area if you kind of want to just hang out on your own, and then there's the outdoor TV where you can hang out and it's a little more communal as well, and then there's tons of like outdoor space as well, and the basketball hoop. So
have you been playing basketball with the roomies?
Unfortunately, we were balling a little too hard, and the hoop ended up falling recently. So I'm gonna need to figure out how to get it back up. But yeah, before then we definitely were.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So did you have any fears going into this process, whether the house hacking, becoming a landlord, a manager of others in your house, or fears around just being a first-time home buyer?
Yeah, I would say yes. I didn't know the process going in. There was, early on, it was kind of hard to find the right roommates too. And I was definitely stuck with paying like higher amounts in rent. But I was telling myself, like, I know that the right people will come along. Like, so, I'd say a recommendation to anyone who's house hacking would be like, if you are looking to house hack, I'd say like be willing to spend maybe 3 to 4 months on like making sure you get the right roommates in. So if I were to like do it again, I'd probably want to like plan that out. And yeah, there was definitely like some fear just around the neighborhood itself. The woman, Debbie, who ended up selling me the house, definitely expressed that the neighbors are great and it's a great neighborhood, but you don't really know that until you actually move into the place. So I had like maybe some slight reservations on that. And then, yeah, just knowing that I would really like it there. So it turned out great.
And how have the neighbors been?
They've been wonderful. I was actually over at one of their houses, and he was helping me print out all sorts of flyers and such just this week. So it's a really nice like community there.
And I know we looked at a lot of different communities, and you did end up in a non-HOA community. What was it that stood out for you in being in a non-HOA community in Las Vegas? Obviously, it's a city where HOAs are very prominent,
Yeah.
and almost all communities have at least a small HOA fee that comes with it. What have been the pros or the cons of living in a non-HOA community in Las Vegas?
I'm very pro non-HOA. I think that just the idea of being able to, like, if you're hanging out and playing music and not really worrying, and I know the people that are in like the near area of me, so I wouldn't want someone to come knocking and have to really like have to cater to that. Not that we're crazy loud, we're certainly not. But I just like the idea of having that freedom. I also am very like anti-gate. I just don't really like having to go into a gate every single time I enter my house or a place like that, like where I grew up. You never had to do that. I just like feeling like it is like it's a communal place, and I feel like gates kind of, I don't know, just like you're shut off from the outside world in a way. So I really am happy with being in a non-HOA area, and I probably will be even more happy when I choose to do some upgrades to the house.
And how did you land on the specific area of town that you landed on? We looked all over.
All over.
We saw a lot of different parts of Las Vegas, primarily on the west side, but really we covered all parts of
We did. I
the
drug
west
you
side.
through it.
I think for a first-time home buyer, and maybe you tell me how you think, it's a first experiencing this process for
And
the
I didn't
first
know
time.
Vegas, right? I didn't know Vegas that well. I'd only lived there for 8 months or even 6 months when we started working together, probably more like 8 months. And, I felt like I needed to learn these areas. So part of my learning process of Vegas was actually us driving around and looking at these different homes. So not to cut you off there, but yeah, I think it was a learning process of actually understanding Vegas too. Yeah.
A lot of the buyers that I work with, they are moving to Las Vegas from out of town.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the opportunity to live here for a couple months, and it's almost like you really don't know the city unless you start discovering it with the purpose of learning more about the areas. Because like most people, you have your area and you do a lot of things in your area, or you might go to downtown Summerlin if you're close by in the Northwest area. So do you have any advice for someone that is in your shoes, that is perhaps a first-time home buyer looking to move to Las Vegas, or maybe renting in Las Vegas already and looking to purchase a home? How would you advise them to navigate that from the place of you being in this spot 1 year ago?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I would do a lot of what we did. I think like looking at many, many different places, and checking out the neighborhoods and just driving. I know after we would meet, I would just do a little drive around some of the times and just see like what it was like to feel like, especially if there was a house where I was like, this seems like a great house. That was when I'd be like, okay, let's see how much I like this neighborhood. How close is the nearest grocery store? Just all those different things that you want to be around. I generally wanted to be like somewhat close to the strip, and like I was kind of leaning towards Summerlin, but wanting to also not be too far from the strip. So I thought it was a iterative process. I kind of didn't really know what I wanted going in, other than that I wanted to find a good house, with a good backyard, and it would work for house hacking, and it kind of checked a lot of boxes, just over time. And we needed to look at all those houses in order to get there.
And it was a crazy time when you were looking for houses. The market was very different than it is this year. It was much more competitive. And we would look at a house together on Monday online, and by the time we would get to the weekend to see it, it would already be under contract.
Yeah.
So how was it when you did finally find the one, the home that you knew was the perfect home for you? What was that process like for you, navigating that in a really competitive market where there were multiple offers on that property?
Yeah, it was fairly stressful, I would say. I'm obviously happy with the way it finished, but I think if you kind of just think of the different ways things could have gone, I think at the time when we ended up finding the house I'm in, I was getting a little discouraged about the whole process. I was like, every single house that I like is going away, and then I was like, like maybe this just isn't, you're kind of like, maybe this isn't supposed to happen kind of thing, or maybe I shouldn't be looking for a house in Vegas. And I think, I definitely would have kept at it for a good bit longer, because I knew I wanted to, I knew that the right house was out there, and I felt like it was some sort of cosmic thing when we ended up finding the one, because, the woman who had owned the house previously, it was one owner, and she met me and she was like, he seems like such a good guy, and I like kind of want to sell to him. And I was like, well, great. Like, I know other people are interested in this house. And I was like, oh, I was like, Olga, we got to get this one. This is the house. And I'm just so, so glad that it ended up working out that way. But, I was definitely getting discouraged by the process of such a hot market at the time, to get back to your earlier question.
Well, thanks for hanging in there. And I know I'm telling you, trust me, it'll happen for you. And while it was really crazy, it did really work that you connected with owner of the property, and you were also, from what she told you, you would be a great fit for the neighborhood. And that sometimes makes a difference. Not always, but sometimes you get to meet the owner, or in your case, the real estate agent was the owner. So that worked out. But sometimes the owner is there when someone is touring the home. And we've had a couple of those where you've also met a couple other owners and connected with them. So yeah, it's almost like when it's meant to be, it happens. And I have a lot of clients that tend to get to that point where they're just unsure if they're going to find the one. And being a first-time home buyer, this was your first experience, first time going through the process. So how did you know that it was the one for you? How did you know that it was the home?
I think it came to checking all those boxes. I was like, this backyard is awesome. And like at that, every time we would go to a house, I would be like, how's the backyard, And I would be like, can I picture myself out here in the morning, just like stretching and starting my day? And so that was kind of the way that I was framing it in my mind. And when I saw that backyard, I was like, wow, I mean, you can do a whole lot back there. I mean, and still have other plans for it. But when I saw that, I was like, okay, and this is great. Then it also has the separated master bedroom. So I have kind of my own space within it, and I know that was a big factor for me at the time, and still is. And yeah, I felt like it was just, as you said, and I think I said, it was like some cosmic force, which was like, Jeff, like, this is the one, man. Like, you gotta buy this house. And so like, I know we probably would have gone a little bit more in on it, but I'm happy with how the whole process went.
Amazing. So how has it been living in this house? It's been exactly a year since you moved in. Have you been stretching in the backyard?
Oh yeah, a good amount. I go out and meditate in the morning on the outdoor couch. It feels there's a lot of environment going on back there. It doesn't really feel like Vegas, which I like. So I'm from Maryland, and we had a creek behind my house, and so, I would always go and like I would walk my dog in the creek. So I was used to having a lot of like kind of wildlife behind me, and there are birds going on back there. It's loud. It's pretty lively. And so I like having that going on around me. Yeah.
So day to day, it's been great. Homeownership a year in. To go back to house hacking and homeownership and the cost of homeownership. Mm-hmm. So how has it been for you with house hacking? Obviously, the purpose of that is to help you cover the mortgage. Interest rates are practically the same as they were this time last year. There's been some slight fluctuations up and down. But how's it working out for you? I'm sure this is something that a lot of people who are considering house hacking would be curious. Financially, how's that working out for you?
Yeah, I overall would recommend it. Obviously, market to market, I'm sure it's different as far as the rental market and things like that. So That's probably something to take into mind. So for those first months, as I mentioned, it was not going great because I was taking on the full mortgage for a few of those months. But now that I have so it's a 4 bedroom, and I've had 2 guys that have been living there for a fair amount of time, probably one of them since August of last year, and then since I think February of this year. So that's going well. And then I think one of my friends from home is talking about coming out as well. So for that last room. So when 2 rooms are covered, 2 of the 3 are covered, and then mine, of course, I'm at probably, I'd need to make up about 1,100 on the mortgage. And then if 3 are taken, it's at about 200. And so I take care of all the utilities for everything there. So yeah, it is a bit of a math, problem to take on every month. But, I think once you get to a more stable living situation, that's when really the house hacking can really like find its level. Yeah.
And how would you compare your payments for the house versus what you were paying for rent in your apartment that you were in prior to buying this home?
Yeah, I think I was paying about 1,500, and then I took care of all the utilities as well in my apartment. And then so with house hacking, it's now more like 1,100. And then obviously all the money that you're spending it's not really spending, it's more like investing. Yeah. So instead of spending, you're putting the value just directly into your own home, which is great.
So it sounds like there's obviously some benefits of house hacking that you've already experienced just doing it for a year. I'm curious, do you have any house hacking horror stories? Has anything happened where you've just been like, I don't know about this house hacking thing?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was that first person that moved in that I had to kick out because of the dog. And that was definitely an uncomfortable situation. You needed to have some adult conversations. When someone moves into your house and moves all their stuff and puts in all that effort, I'm certainly understanding of like it's the last thing you want to do is have to move out. And yeah, so it's really a lot about setting expectations up front. I don't think I would take another person with a dog because I'm doing so much rover dog sitting right now, actually. And one of my questions is, are you okay with having a dog in the house? And so, yeah, I would say I have had horror stories. I've had, one guy was working on Senator Rosen's campaign for a short bit, and he was in that room that had the bed set up. And then I had another guy who was a hand balancer here in Cirque du Soleil, and he kept things fun and interesting. And we actually had his wheel in the backyard, so that was an interesting one as well. And so, yeah, I've had all sorts of different people, moving in and inquire about moving in as well. But we haven't even gone over some of the people that came over to check out the house, actually. I had one guy who didn't mention at all that he was going to be coming with his girlfriend. And I realized, I guess I need to be asking that question now. Like, are you moving with a spouse? I have had many people, like they'll have kids and they'll say like, oh, but like the kids won't be around like much. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, sorry, like I just can't do that because, there's a pool and there's liability there. I don't really want to have to deal with anything like that. So I had another kid who was literally a kid. I think he was 17 years old and some change, and he wanted to rent out the house. And that was when the age question started coming. And so I kind of filter out anything that's like, 24 and below, and then I'd say like 35 and above, maybe a little higher than 35. But yeah, I've had a number of different stories, and I have, you kind of have to mitigate whatever risk you have, and obviously these are people that are going to be living in your home, so you want to make sure you're comfortable and happy with how that's all going to go.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was a bit of a learning process of asking the right questions, understanding where to set your boundaries, age limits, plus ones.
Yeah. Make sure if you are going to get into house hacking, like nail these pre-screening questions. And then, like you said, like, what are my non-negotiables around someone that's going to live in my house? Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So, do you miss anything about renting versus homeownership?
I definitely there's some times when I wish I had my own space, but most of the time, no, because I really am generally really happy with the house as it is. And people go out of town, and I work from home, so it can be plenty quiet there, and I like having good quiet time, and so yeah, no, I'd say for the most part I don't really miss renting. I think that it would mostly just be about if I wanted to be living alone or versus living with people.
Got it. And speaking of living in Las Vegas, you've been here for a couple years now. Obviously, coming from the East Coast, it's a big change. Has there been anything that has been a surprise for you about living in Las Vegas, whether it's the weather or the kind of people that are here, or just how Las Vegas is in general, that has been something that you've perceived negatively or positively? I know a lot of people say it's so hot there, it's the desert, it's a transient city, but what's your experience been like overall of Las Vegas?
Yeah. That last one, I think it's a transient city. It is. Most people are from other places, which, in my opinion, it makes it easier to meet people because they're coming from a different place. I laugh when people complain about traffic here because they clearly haven't experienced DC traffic.
We don't have bad traffic.
It's not bad at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, and people, it makes total sense to me why you would move from parts of California if you're sitting in the LA parking lot that is the highway. But so yeah, it's definitely hot as blazes during times of the year. I don't really mind the heat. I do think if you're moving to Vegas, you should be someone who's okay with handling the heat. It's also dry heat, so that makes it a little easier. And I like it for a number of reasons. There's not as many bugs like we have on the East Coast, and also my allergies are much, much better here. So just some small reasons, but it's a very livable place. You can get to where you want to go pretty easily. And yeah, if you whatever, community that you want to build, I kind of feel like you can build it here.
And what community have you been plugged into? How have you met people here?
Yeah, I kind of have had different pockets of people. Last night I was playing basketball with my group of Jewish lads, so that was fun. And then people are always coming into town too. So, I generally always have people that are coming into town. I know next weekend I have, some friends who are making their way here. And then I have obviously my roommates that are here, and then they have their friends, and so it all just kind of extends.
Do you have any advice now that you've been through the first-time home buying process to anyone who is around your age? You're in your early 30s, which is a pretty young age these days to be able to purchase a home with all of the factors, right? Do you have any advice or something that you wish that you knew before you started on your journey of buying a home for the first time, especially here in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I think I'd say just recognize it's gonna take some time. You're not gonna find the perfect home probably. Maybe you will. Like you said, the market changes quickly, and maybe you do. Especially with all the new builds, if that's something you're up for. But yeah, for me, it was I needed to know that. How long was it? It was 8 months that we were looking at houses. It was long. It was a good amount of time.
You started in December, and you
bought in late May. So
yeah.
Okay, so a little shorter than that. Maybe I'm impatient. But yeah, I would have wanted to know that it's going to take some time to find the right house. And especially as a first-time home buyer, it's going to take time to figure out what it is that you really want to. So at least that was how it was for me. For someone else, they might just have I want this house and this place with this, in this community, but, I wasn't really like that.
And something interesting happened during your process because we were looking for a good amount of time. From December to January, the market changed. It went from, some homes on the market that didn't really have any other people looking at them to January. It was very, very competitive all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So you had to navigate now a completely different market from one month to another. So I think that really goes into what you said, be patient. Things might change that are totally out of your control, right?
Yeah, I think for anyone going into the process, know that it's going to take some time to figure out what you want.
Yeah. Well, and we work together, obviously. Thank you for trusting me and guiding you through the process, especially being a first-time home buyer. I really enjoyed working with you, and I always get so happy when we find that home finally, and it's because it can take a bit of time and it can have that air of uncertainty because you've never done this before, and you just never know when that perfect home is going to come on the market. So I really appreciated being able to guide you through the process. Is there anything that you can recall from our time working together that was helpful to you specifically as a first-time home buyer, coming from me as your real estate professional?
Yeah, I mean, I thought you did an amazing job, Olga. I think that you were really responsive, just in the day-to-day, as far as like if I saw a house on Zillow or even if you were looking and you found one that was within my criteria that fit, I know you were sending those back and forth. We were kind of in tandem there pretty regularly. And then obviously you were very patient with me, just to go back to that, I felt like I was dragging you through like some of the houses that I was looking at, maybe weren't even within my criteria that I still wanted to go see. And that it was probably past like a number of months, and I was still like, oh, like maybe I want to go check that one out because, sometimes I just see something that I would want to get a little extra look at. So yeah, I would say that it was a really good process for me as far as learning it all. And then I think that you made it easier for me to make the decision, and find ultimately the right house.
Well, thank you. I'd like to think that we worked really well together as a team. And I think it's important in this process to really see this as a partnership and see the process as, we really work together to get to the finish line. So you're a good teammate.
Back at you, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. If you're looking to hop into the real estate market here in Las Vegas, our inventory has gone up by 50% in the last several months. So there are a lot more options for homes than when Jeff was shopping for his home this time last year. And with more homes means there is more opportunity to negotiate a great deal. So if you would like my help to help you navigate the market, help you negotiate a great deal, give me a call. I would love to be a resource for you on all things Las Vegas real estate. I'm going to put my number right here. You can also email me. You could call me. You could send me a text. I look forward to being the one to help you through this process. And I'm actually going to be the one that answers my call. I have a small but mighty team, so you will be working directly with me. And I look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I will see you in the next video.